السودان
الله عنعانا. سوري. هذا التي في حتركب هونيك يا عمي. لمين هذا التي في؟ تي في
اهلا وسهلا بالجميع اللي لبوا هالدعوة الكريمة لحتى يشوفوا صديقهم اللبناني اللي كل لبناني بيفتخر فيه. الأستاذ كارلوس غصن مش اسم عادي، اسم مميز. وهالجمعة هدول اللي جايين هاللبنانيين اللي شايفينهم هون لأنه المؤمنين فيه ومؤمنين بأنه قضيته عادلة، أنه هو رجل صالح. واللي بيعرف تاريخه للأستاذ كارلوس بيستغرب شو اللي عم بتصير. الأستاذ كارلوس غصن مش اسم عادي، اسم مميز. وهالجمعة هدول اللي جايين هاللبنانيين اللي شايفين هون لأنه المؤمنين فيه ومؤمنين بأنه قضيته عادلة، أنه هو رجل صالح. واللي بيعرف تاريخه للأستاذ كارلوس بيستغرب شو اللي عم بتصير. صحيح أنه هو ولد في البرازيل، وأول شركة كان فيها شركة فرنسوية ميشلان، وانتقل من هناك على فرنسا، ومن رجع فات على شركة رينو مساعد مدير عام، بعدين صار مدير عام. بسنة 99 صار في مشكلة كبيرة كتير عند النيسان. النيسان كانت شركة مفلسة ما معهم مصاري وعليهم 15 مليار دولار. راح هو كمدير كبير بشركة رينو وعمل اتفاق معهم واشتروا 30% من نيسان، ووعد انه خلال 4 سنوات رح يقدر هو يوفي الديون اللي عليها. ولكن الحمد لله قبل ب3 سنين كان وافي الدين اللي على نيسان. ما اكتفى بالنيسان بس، كمان جاب الميتسوبيشي، ومن هون كبرت الدنيا كلها. وما بدي اترك الكلام طبعا، بس هذه على نجاحاته اللي بيفتخر فيه كل لبناني. وانا بحب اهلكم بهالموقع الجديد للنقابه اللي الله يرحمه ريمون نجار هو تبرع بهذا تأهيل هذا البناء. وشكرا.
عزيز.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here, with many of you traveling great distances to join me. Ça, c'est le seul endroit où je vais parler en plusieurs langues. Je voudrais aussi saluer nos amis de la presse française qui nous ont rejoints. وأنا حابب كمان سلم على كل الأصدقاء اللبنانية. أنا اليوم فخور كون لبناني، لأنه إذا في بلد بالعالم وقف معي بهالصعوبات هو لبنان. As you can imagine, today is a very important day for me. One, that I have looked forward to every single day for more than 400 days, since I was brutally taken from my world as I knew it, ripped from my family, my friends, my communities, from Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi, and the 450,000 women and men who comprise those companies. I have not experienced a moment of freedom since November 19, 2018. It is impossible to express the depth of that deprivation and my profound appreciation to once again be able to be reunited with my family and loved ones. Today is also a poignant reminder of the day precisely 1 year ago when I appeared before many of you as well as a Japanese judge and prosecutors in Tokyo. I pleaded my innocence by I did so while constrained by handcuffs and bound by a leash around my waist, which was used to walk me into the courtroom. I was in the midst of being held indefinitely in solitary confinement after several failed attempts at bail. I had just spent the Christmas and New Year holiday alone and in confinement, and I hadn't spoken to or seen my family for 6 weeks. My only contact with them were letters shown to me by lawyers through a looking glass. I had spent the previous months being interrogated for up to 8 hours a day without any lawyers present, without an understanding of what exactly I was being accused of, without access to the evidence that justify this travesty against my human rights and dignity. It will get worse for you if you don't just confess. The prosecutor told me repeatedly, and this has been taped. You can look at the tapes because the tapes are being held. You can see how many times they came out about, you just confess and it will be over. And if you don't confess, not only we're going to go after you, we're going to go after your family. And we're going to discover many things. Every day I woke up on nights that I was able to sleep and to make a decision. Do I fight for my innocence or do I do as they say? And there was no end in sight. And those conditions remained more or less the same day after day, week after week, month after month. The feeling of hopelessness was profound. And every day for over 130 days in detention, I fought for my innocence. When I was finally granted bail for the first time and saw the opportunity to share with you all what I intend to share today, I was ruthlessly thrown back in solitary confinement within 24 hours, a confinement that flies in the face of global and United Nations standards of justice. This is why today is such an important occasion for me. I'm not here to talk about how I managed to leave Japan, although I can understand that you are interested in that. I'm here to talk about why I left. For the first time since this nightmare began, I can defend myself, speak freely, and answer your questions. It was very easy to beat on me while I was in prison. It was very, very easy to describe me the way I was described. Unfortunately, not only in Japan. But now I'm going to be able to speak with facts and data and evidence, and hopefully you will discover the truth, not as it has been travestied by the people who are accusing me, or the people who join this accusation, or the accomplices, not only in Japan but outside Japan, But the reality is very different, and hopefully today you're going to discover it with me. I'm not here to victimize myself. I'm here to shed light on a system that violates the most basic principles of humanity. I'm here to clear my name and to pronounce clearly and emphatically something that was interpreted as a heresy in the Japanese judicial system. These allegations are untrue, and I should have never been arrested in the first place. First, I would like to begin by expressing my profound gratitude to those who supported me during this unspeakable ordeal in the face of a systematic campaign by a handful of malevolent actors to destroy my reputation and impugn my character. I'm grateful beyond words for the steadfast love and support of my family, my wife, Carol, my 4 children, my 3 sisters, my mother, Rose, Carol's children and family. They all endured unimaginable pain. They learned of my arrest and solitary confinement through the media. They were barred from seeing me or even speaking to me for months. They were targeted by relentless, shameless, baseless media attacks orchestrated by Japanese prosecutors, Nissan executives, and unfortunately many accomplices. I think of my supportive friends, as well as the numerous anonymous individuals who sent me letters of support while I was in the detention center of Kosuge. I think of the Lebanese authorities and citizens who never lost their faith in me. They showed the world that for a small country, Lebanese people have a big soul, they have a big heart, and the true sense of righteousness. I think of my lawyers around the globe who wage a valiant battle, putting their career on the line and devoting their full energy against a corrupt and hostile system that presumed my guilt from day one and was designed to break my spirit and coerce my confession. I also want to thank the human rights and criminal justice advocates globally, and particularly in Japan, who have fought tirelessly against insuperable odds to improve Japan's anachronistic and inhumane system of hostage justice. It is a system that is indifferent to the truth, indifferent to fairness and process, indifferent to fundamental civil liberties and accepted norms of justice. I also want to take a moment to mention Greg Kelly, an honorable man, husband and father, who was brutally torn from his word and his family on that November day, summoned to Tokyo under false pretenses by Harinada when he needed to stay home for an important surgery. Greg remains a victim of the Japanese hostage justice system with no trial date in sight 14 months after his arrest. While my plight has captured the headline, we and you cannot forget Greg's ordeal and the pain he and family endure each day at the hands of the Japanese system. He is being punished precisely because he is honorable and refused to participate in a suspicious pre-bargaining agreement alongside Harinada and Onuma and probably many others. Thanks to the systematic leaking of false information and distorted information, and the intentional withholding of exculpatory information by the prosecutor and by Nissan, I was presumed guilty before the eyes of the world and subject to a system whose only objective is to coerce confessions, secure guilty pleas without regard to the truth. I have come to learn that my unimaginable ordeal over the past 14 months is the result of a handful of unscrupulous, vindictive individuals at Nissan, at the Latham and Watkins law firm, with the support of the Tokyo Prosecutor Office. It is important for me to emphasize that I'm not above the law, and I welcome the opportunity for the truth to come out and to have my name vindicated and my reputation restored. I did not escape justice. I fled injustice, and persecution, political persecution. Having endured more than 400 days of inhumane treatment in a system designed to break me and unwilling to provide me even minimal justice, I was left with no other choice but to protect myself and my family. It was a difficult decision and a risk one only takes if resigned to the impossibility of a fair trial. With the strings being pulled and manipulated by those dead set on securing a confession or a conviction whose only goal is to save face. The facts, the truth, justice are irrelevant to these individuals. This was the most difficult decision of my life. But let us not forget that I was facing a system where the conviction rate is 99.4%. And I will bet you that this number is much higher for the foreigners. The legitimacy of a justice system should not rest on its conviction rate, but instead on the confidence that it searches for and honors truth and dispenses fair and just outcomes. It is the prosecutors, aided and abetted by petty, vindictive and lawless individuals in government, at Nissan and the Latam law firm, who have destroyed and are destroying Japan's reputation on the global stage. It is them who are fueling an archaic, manipulative, arbitrary side to an otherwise modern country. It is them who should be held accountable. The charges against me are baseless. Why do you think the prosecutors have leaked false information to the press against the Japanese law? Why have they intentionally concealed exculpatory evidence that support my innocence? We're going to see it. Why have they continually delayed the still undetermined, 13 months after, the still undetermined trial date, and extended the relentlessly investigation timeline? Why have they rearrested me and seized all my legal defense documents? Why were they so intent on preventing me from talking and holding a press conference where I would set forth the facts and my side of the story? Why have they spent 14 months trying to break my spirit, banning me from all contact with my wife, and surveying my every move? Let me, before going to your question, and I know you have many, try to give you some answer. And I'm going to follow particularly 5 topics. The first topic is why all of this happened. At the beginning, why all of this happened. The second is, how did it happen? I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I've been through for 14 months. Third is, we're going to come back to the 4 charges that the prosecutor had put on me. I'm going to explain to you the charges. We're going to also talk about all the charges that have been at the base of what I call the smear campaign, that the prosecutor didn't dare even put them in the accusation, but they are flying through the media with many fantasist interpretation, and unfortunately with some official position which are absolutely not rigorous on them. And finally, I'm going to do some words about the lines Renault and Nissan. Where are they today, 1 year later? What is the situation of these three entities 1 year later? And then I will let you answer all your questions. So let me start with the first item, which is why. Okay? If we say, okay, this is a plot, and this is something which has been organized, why? What are the reasons for this? Well, we have 2 reasons. There are probably many, but I'm going to give you the main one. The 2 main reasons for this to happen. The first one was the fact that Nissan performance unfortunately started to decline at the beginning of 2017. I will remind you that in October 2016, I have decided to remove myself from the operation of Nissan because I signed the deal with Mitsubishi, taking control of 34% of Mitsubishi, and Mitsubishi needed help. So I moved to Mitsubishi as chairman of the board, as future chairman of the board, to support Masuko-san into reviving this company. And I told Saikawa-san, okay, we're going to propose you as co-CEO Yeah, but this is also something we should say. The CEOs are not named by their predecessor. They are named by the board. They are proposed by the predecessor, but it is the board decision. So when people say, oh, Monsieur Bolloré was named by Mr. Gon, wrong. Mr. Bolloré was named by the board. He was proposed by Carlos Gon, but he was named by the board. So when they say, oh, he was named by Mr. Gon, that means he has no legitimacy, it's dead wrong. It's not factual. The members of the board of Renault voted unanimously to nominate him as CEO. And 9 months later, that unanimously voted him down. That's the reality. So let's come back to our story about Saikao. Nominated in October 2016, CEO of the company. I moved to Mitsubishi. I told him, now it's your turn. I promised that one day I will return this company after having been CEO for 17 years. After having been CEO for 17 years of a dead company in 1999. I left with him $20 billion in cash. A company which was profitable, which was growing, which was respected. A brand which was nowhere in 1999, which became one of the top 60 brands in the world. That's what I left with him. And then, you take care of it, now it's your turn. Let me help Mitsubishi, let me take care of Renault, and let me take care of the lines. Unfortunately, you know, a CEO is here as long as he performs. I didn't stay 17 years head of Nissan because I was Carlos Ghosn. I was there only because I was performing. I was delivering growth, I was delivering profit, I was delivering cash flow, I was delivering dividends. That's our reason to be. Unfortunately, we started in 17 to see a decline in the performance of the company. Obviously, many tough discussions. In 2018, another decline, many tough discussions. But at the same time, he was the CEO and he was responsible for it. So he has to find a solution with his own team. So there was some nervousness in the ranks of the top management, and particular ranks in the top management, that at a certain point in time, patience will run out and change will come. That's number one. Number two, well, we have to come back to the history of the lines. You know, there was a famous Florange law in France that has been voted, giving double voting rights for the shareholders who have more than 2 years. We, as board of Renault, opposed this rule. And we have the right, because the law allowed us, if there is more than 2/3 of the shareholders voting to pass over this rule, it was possible. We didn't prevail because, as you know, the French state increased its stake into the company, blocked the majority of 2/3. We have most of the shareholders with us, but we were not able to reach the 2/3 of the shares. This left a big bitterness with our friends in Japan. Not only with the management of Nissan, but also with the governments of Japan. And this left a big state because somehow they considered that it is unfair that Nissan, who owns 15% of shares in Renault, has 0 voting right, and that the French state, who owns 15% of Renault, has double voting rights. We try to explain it. Of Renault on Nissan is to get rid of me, which unfortunately they were right, because when you see exactly what's happening today, where Renault has very little influence on what's going on in Nissan, even though they put a nice face on what's taking place, you know exactly that the Japanese have the right analysis by saying, we get rid of him, we will get much more autonomy for Nissan. Unfortunately, as you know, we're going to talk about the results. The results that were expected are not the one that everybody was hoping for. So, who are the people? I promise you a name. I'm going to give you names. Okay? Who was part of the plot? Obviously, Saikawa is part of the plot. Harinada is part of the plot, obviously, and Onuma, because they showed. But there are many other people. Toyoda, member of the board, was the link between the board of Nissan, and the authorities. Now, I can talk about what happens in the government of Japan. I can give you names, I know them. But I am in Lebanon, I respect Lebanon, and I respect the hospitality that has been extended to me by the authorities in Lebanon. And in no way I want to do anything or say anything that would make their task more difficult. So I'm imposing on myself silence on this part of the presentation, because in no way I want to show anything or say anything that would hurt the interest of the Lebanese people or the Lebanese government. So I will stop there for the government. Kawaguchi, Imazu, chief auditor, Toyoda, these are the main people. Obviously there are many other people participating to it, but I have all the names. I'm limiting to the main people who are involved. The prosecutor, I will mention some of the names. You're going to have the people who have been from all the sides of the fences, like the lawyer company LW that Nissan, that we were using in the past and continue to help Nissan, even though attacking some of the advice that they have given us when we were in charge, and now they are supporting the new team. So the story is very long, but I'm going to limit myself. How? Decline of the performance of Nissan, suspicion about the next step of the irreversibility of the lines. These are the two reasons for which this happened. How? I was arrested on November 19, 2018. I didn't suspect anything. And I didn't suspect anything because I was not anymore the CEO of the company, I was chairman. And now I delegate. Some people ask me, oh my God, Apin, you didn't look at this, you didn't mention this, you didn't suspect this. And it happened that it was a colleague, one of your colleagues from the US, and I say, you know, what happened in Pearl Harbor? Did you see Pearl Harbor happening? Did you see Pearl Harbor happening? Did you notice what happened in Pearl Harbor? You know, so you're telling me, you're asking me how did I notice, and I was not even in my country, that something like this was being cooked against me, and you're telling me how did I notice? I didn't notice it. And I didn't notice it because it is true that when it's planned, and it's confidential, and it's secret, well, it happens, and you'll be surprised, and I was surprised. There was a stage arrest. I've been told, I didn't know, that the world was led to know that I was arrested in the airplane. Bullshit. I was arrested in the airport. I came down from the airplane, I was taken in a car, I arrived to the passport, they told me there's a problem with my visa, they took me in a small room, and this is where I found Seki, prosecutor, telling me, I'm from the prosecutor office, I need to talk to you, and since then say, you cannot use anymore your phone, and I know I was arrested, I understand what's going on. And because I was surprised, I told him, okay, can I at least give a phone call to Nissan to send a lawyer? Well, obviously I didn't know that Nissan was behind it, and it was all staged way before between the prosecutor and the company. This is the way it happened. And from there they took me to Kosuge detention center. It took 5 hours between my arrest and me finding myself into a tiny cell in Kosuge. The collusion between Nissan and the prosecutor is everywhere. The only people who don't see it, maybe, are the people in Japan. They don't see this collusion. And I've been told this is totally illegal. How can it be illegal? And at the same time, we have so many traces, so many hands on the wall, and nobody's talking about them. Well, you don't see if you don't want to see. But the collusion between Niysan and the prosecutor is coming through witnesses who were in the headquarters of Niysan, who told me exactly what happened before I was arrested, all the preparation, all the visits, a lot of the meeting that took place between the prosecutors and Niysan, at least without counting officials. And I'm not going to talk about the officials, as I said. So I was sent to the prison, and the prosecutor told me, well, we're going to arrest you for under-reporting your compensation. I was shocked at the beginning. Frankly, I couldn't understand that. I said, what compensation? And he said, yeah, we are arresting you for under-reporting a compensation that was not paid to you. Second surprise. Okay, so we're talking about something which was not paid for. Yes. And then something which didn't go to the board, which means that it did not decided. So I was arrested for a compensation that was not fixed, that was not decided, and that was not paid. This is the reason of my arrest. This is the reason of my arrest. Well, I can tell you that in many countries, there is no reason to arrest. It's certainly not a criminal case. It's certainly not even an offense. Give you a name you know very well. Tanaka-san, professor of corporate law, Tokyo University, consulted 3 weeks ago by my lawyers. They put everything. Now that we have the documents, at least on the first charge from the prosecutor, again, 13 months after the arrest, we showed him everything. And we told him, Professor, please, tell us. He said, I'm quoting him, it is a shame that Japan arrested Mr. Gon for this. So we asked him to write, and he's going to write. Obviously, I don't know if he's going to continue to write it now. But he said, it's a shame, Professor Tanaka, University of Tokyo, corporate law. It's a shame that Mr. Gon was arrested for this. Let me continue. So, let me talk to you, and a little bit, I'm not going to talk too much about it. 130 days in prison, solitary confinement, tiny cell without window, light day and night, 30 minutes per day, excluding weekend, because obviously there is not enough guard in the weekend. You can't go for 30 minutes outside. When there is a holiday, there is nobody. So you stay in your cell, you just get your food. For example, 6 days without any human contact during the New Year break. Shower twice a week. Try to ask to have more, they said no. Prescribed medication is forbidden. You can get only the medicine from the prison. Interrogated days and night. Can happen in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, up to 8 hours, obviously without the presence of a lawyer. All of this is taped. Impossible to take to anyone, no one speaks English or French or anything. When we need something important, we have to bring somebody, and this guy is available once a week. Presumption of guilt prevail. Prosecutor from the beginning, they let me to know you're guilty. Don't play games, confess. And everything they were asking me is not to try to discover the truth, is to try to find reason to make sure that their accusation will be stronger. So I felt from the beginning that there was no interest into finding the truth. They was interested into trying to build a very strong case against me. And sent back to prison the day before the press conference to stop me from speaking out. Which is interesting is that after I was bailed out the second time, a new prosecutor in Japan has been nominated, and he was interviewed by the Japanese media. And Japanese media said, Mr. Prosecutor, why do you forbid Mr. Gon to talk to the press? He said, oh, no, we don't. We don't. He can't talk to the press. But we also can bring new charges. Which was a very simple message that, okay, yes, sure, he can talk to the press, but watch, and we can bring new charges. And they're very good at bringing charges, because as you know, yesterday, what a coincidence, yesterday, obviously they can't put me back in prison, but they put a warrant arrest for my wife, yesterday. On what? On declaration she made 9 months ago in front of the judge and with the prosecutor. And what is the reason? They said, oh, we suspect she said something which was wrong. 9 months later? You discovered this 9 months later? 1 day before this press conference? What a coincidence. What a coincidence. This is exactly the way it works. You talk, you go back to Kosuge. 9 months separated from my wife without any motive. Carol has a lot of courage. After I've been arrested, she left the country. Prosecutor asked her, why are you leaving the country? Well, obviously, they took her passport, they were very threatening, they left her without a telephone, they got her computer, she was left alone in Tokyo without anything. She left because she was afraid. But then when they started to say, oh, she has something to hide, she came back. 4 days later, she flew back. They interrogated her in front of the court with the judge and the prosecutor. And then she left. And now they're issuing a warrant for false testimony 9 months later. Let me give you another example. The judge in charge of the bail condition, Hajime Shimada, we asked him 7 times to remove the ban over a period of 9 months. 7 times. And every time he took the time to think, nothing changed, huh? And then he came back by saying no. And why no? Because tampering of evidence. Tampering of evidence for Carol. But I was able to receive my sisters. I was able to receive my kids. I was able to receive my cousins, my friends. So if I was intending to tamper evidence, I could tamper evidence with anybody. Why Carol? Because they knew that by not allowing me to have a normal life, they were breaking me. And which is interesting is when we tell Shimada-san, you know, maybe they can meet from time to time under your control. And the question was very interesting. It was saying, why do they want to meet? And we said, okay, how about a Zoom, a conference? He said, what do they want to talk about? I felt like I was not a human anymore. I was something between a human, an animal, or an object. I mean, there is no feeling that a man and a woman who are married want to talk together, and I have to explain why I have to talk to my wife? They didn't care. And the answer, as you know, was no. And I had to write for 2 hours in 9 months, with a lawyer present in the room, and the poor guy was embarrassed. He just tell me, please excuse me, I have to be here, and I have to report about what did you say to your wife. That's what we're talking about. The second one that I would like to mention also, I mentioned I had many pre-trial sessions. In the pre-trial session, you have the prosecutor, you have the defense, and you have the judge. 3 judges. Well, I was naive. I thought that the judge was the boss. Well, I was wrong. The boss was the prosecutor. The judge, Kenji Shimotsu, very nice guy, very polite. But the prosecutor did whatever they want. When they were late, they say, we're sorry, we're late, we're busy. When they ask, why don't you bring this document this day? They say, we're going to think about it. Then the date comes, they say, we're late, we're not giving it. And why all of this? Try as much as possible to delay the trial. And when I left Japan, I still did not have a date for the first charge. Didn't have a date for the first charge. Then they came with the idea about saying, oh, we cannot put all the trials at the same time. You have to finish the first charge before we start the second one. So when I asked my lawyers about how much time all of this is going to take, saying, we're afraid you're going to be maybe 5 years in Japan before I get judgment. 5 years in Japan. This is, I understand, we have Maître Zimre, who is here, who is a specialist in human rights. Speedy trial is one of the basic and most fundamental rights of any human being, part of the Treaty of Human Rights. Well, I was far from a speedy trial. On the contrary, I had the impression that it can take as much time as possible, and, you know, with the judge being a kind of nice organizer of the whole thing, and the prosecutor calling the shots. 99.4% conviction rate, all the signs that there was no way I was going to be treated fairly, no sign that I will have a normal life for the next 4 or 5 years. So I can tell you, that means it's not very difficult to come to conclusion, you're going to die in Japan, or you're going to have to get out. this was not about justice. This was, as I felt, I was the hostage of a country that I have served for 17 years. I dedicated my professional life. I was proud of it. I revived a company that nobody else before me was able to do. For 10 years, they were in the dirt. I brought them. For 17 years, I was considered as a role model in Japan. More than 20 books of management were written about me. And like this, in a minute, all of a sudden, a few prosecutors and a bunch of executives in Nissan said, you know what? This guy is a cold, greedy dictator. That's what I said. Cold, greedy dictator. We filed motion to dismiss because of all the elements that the prosecutor violated. Obviously, this motion is still being analyzed. And then there is an endless search for new charges by the prosecutor. So in a certain way, you know, I think we have the list. Yeah, we have here the list of all the prosecutor misconducts that have been presented with evidence and with facts and with data and with name and with testimony presented to the court just to ask for the case to be dismissed. But my lawyers in Japan told me, you know, don't think that it will be dismissed. There is zero case in Japan where whatever is the reason of dismissal, a case was dismissed. Some people were acquitted, as part of the 0.6% left, but there is zero case of dismissal. Let me go now to the accusation. The first accusation is the underreporting. This is the main accusation for which I was arrested. Again, amount of money not fixed, not decided, not paid. What's interesting also, I'm going to give you some interesting facts, is that Nissan pleaded guilty in Japan by saying, oh, we're sorry, we're going to provision 9 billion yen recently, and we're going to plead guilty in Japan. And they asked to pay a fine. Good citizen. The problem is that in Tennessee, where there is a lawsuit against them, they took the opposite position. Their lawyer said, well, we're not guilty, there is no reason, there is no reason. And this document is available for you. In Japan, we're guilty, that's what Nissan said. In Tennessee, they said, we're not guilty. So, this document is available, we're sublined. The key sentences saying that, I just wanted to mention this for you and we'll come back. Shinsei Bank, there is a resolution from the board. This is a board resolution. Interesting, in the board resolution, everybody voted unanimously for a resolution saying if a foreign director or a foreign officer want to have a contract of exchange rate to cover his income, he can do it at no cost for the company. Who was present? Well, some people you know. Carlos was member of the board. You have Sakawa, member of the board. They all signed on this. No cost for the company. Very good. I benefited from it. No cost for the company. No cost for the company. No loss for the company. Again, we return by saying, where is the problem? Where is the problem? We continue. Jufali. This is another one. Well, they say, Mr. Gon, Jufali didn't do. He received $14.7 million from Nissan on 4 years, but he didn't do nothing. This is the accusation. He didn't do nothing. Well, we have a contract. We found finally, we got the contract about what Jufali was doing. What are documents that were signed between Jufali and many executives inside Nissan. But particularly, I want to attract your attention to the fact that, you know, there have been a lot of articles saying, you know, CEO reserve. Oh my God, this is the kind of secret money that Carlos Gon, you know, opened a safe, has a lot of cash, distributed to his friend. He can do whatever he wants. CEO reserve is a line in the budget. That's what it is. You can access CEO reserve but it is a line in the budget. It has no payment, it's no cash, it's nothing at all. This is one indication of the CEO reserve. How does it go? You have a vice president asking for the money. In this case, it's Gilles Laurent, who was the head of the region. Then he has to explain why he wants the money and what is the contract which is based. And then you have many people reviewing it and agreeing on it or not. Well, obviously you have legal, then you have the controller, then you have the boss of this guy, who usually is the head of the operation, then there is me. Why? Because if it's called CEO reserve, I have to accept that. Every single payment from CEO reserve follow the same procedure. There is not $1 paid from CEO reserve with my signature alone. You have all these people signing on, and after this, after you agree on the budget line, then it has to go for the payment. And when you go for the payment, you have many other people having to sign. Local controller, local vice president, obviously the people receiving the money, etc., etc. So all this farce, talking about CEO reserve as a kind of being special things where Carlos Ghosn was taking money, giving it to his friend, it doesn't stand 1 minute. We have all the evidence showing that. We have all the documents, fortunately now, because you know, when I was arrested, they took everything from me. I had no computer, no file, no in Renault or in Nissan, nothing. Everything was taken. So I have to reconstitute everything to defend myself. And obviously, I'm using here some of the documents that the prosecutor have at the end to deliver to us in order to allow us to defend ourselves. We also, I would like to show you, can we move to to the declaration of different people? Yeah. Then we have a lot of statements. Prosecutors in Japan have been visiting many people making statements. Never heard about them. We heard about them because they were obliged to give it to them. One of the important statements is Gilles Laurent. Why Gilles Laurent? He was the vice president in charge of the Middle East for Nissan. Another one is Joe Peter. Joe Peter was the chief financial officer of Nissan. Another one is Alain Dassas, also another chief financial officer. They covered all these areas. And when we look at what they are saying in all these documents, and these documents are available, you can consult them, and we make them available for those who want to look at them. So when we are looking at that, what do they say? They say the Middle East was an important region for Carlos Ghosn because Toyota is one of the main profit center of Toyota, and it's not one of the main profit center of Nissan. And as you know, the Middle East is practically an Asian country. The cars selling are Japanese cars and Korean cars. And then obviously you have some Mercedes and BMW, but the European have practically no position in the Middle East, or very weak position. I'm talking particularly about the Gulf. So I want to push the people to say, okay, let's go on the offensive. We have an opportunity not only in volume, but also in profit. And we need to change the way we do business. We need to innovate in the way we do business. Pushing people to partner with the local dealer, that's what Toyota does. They don't have their own bureaucrats going into the region trying to do what they do. They say, no, we have a good dealer. Let's work with him. Let's give him support. Let's give him incentive. Let him do the job for us. And frankly, it delivered for us. Because every time we did this, we had higher sales and higher profits. All of this is argumented. And the presentation made by the prosecutor is, Mr. Ghosn has special ties with the Saudi guy and with Ahmad Bahwan and Suhail Bahwan in Oman. So they have this kind of very cozy relationship. Well, in fact, everything we did with Oman, we did it with Dubai, we did it with Lebanon, we did it with Qatar. They're not talking about the other one. They're just focusing on, these incentives are very big. And what's interesting is when you compare the incentive paid to these people, it's totally normal. And even below the level of incentive that competitors are saying. But this is something you never heard about. Potential of the Middle East is very important, and that's what we were going after. Ahmed Bahwan, let's go to the next one, has been viewed by the prosecutor. Never heard about it, huh? He was reviewed by the prosecutor in Japan. He was interrogated for 1 day. Never heard about it. Why? Because obviously, he didn't say what they were expecting him to say. He denied all of the accusation. And he denied all the accusation, knowing that obviously nobody's going to believe him. They're going to say, yeah, but if you are an accomplice, well, in a certain way, you may say something different than the truth. But you need to know that all the bank accounts, my bank accounts, Bahwan bank accounts, Kumar bank accounts, Jufari bank accounts, have all been swept. All of them. all bank accounts in the world. So if there was any payment which was suspicious, I can tell you, it would be front page of the Nikkei or of the Sankei before it will come directly by the prosecutor. So then people say, okay, so what is the story with Kumar? Well, I say, well, if a breach of trust is there is the money from Nissan going from Nissan and ended up with you, but there is no money from Nissan because the money Nissan stops at Suhail Bahwan Automotive, period. And Kumar has nothing to do with it. And we have all the evidence of that there was absolutely no transfer indicating that there was any money from Nissan benefiting Kumar. So, end of the road. There is no breach of trust, because breach of trust is there is money of the company which is benefiting the executive of the company. I'm sure we'll come back on this. So, let's continue on character assassination. This is, I must say that they've been very successful. As you know, Nissan hired a lot of people. I read in Bloomberg recently that they spent more than $200 million for the investigation and for everything around this. $200 million. To get how much money? How much money is that saved? They're talking about $14.7 million with Jufali that was paid to Jufali and $5 million for Bahwan. So how rationally you're going to say you're going to spend $200 million? You're going to destroy your company. You're going to destroy your brand. You're going to destroy your image. You're going to divert the attention of all your top management. You're taking a big risk with the alliance. And by the way, the market cap decrease of Nissan since my arrest is more than $10 billion. They lost more than $40 million a day during all this period. By the way, Renault is not better because the market cap of Renault went down since my arrest by more than 5 billion euro, which means 20 million euro a day of quotation. 20 million euro a day. So when I hear a statement made by a French official saying, we need to concentrate on the 11 million euro of undefined expenses, I say, yes, sure. Why don't you come to me? I'll explain to you. Nobody came to me. You make an audit. Well, the first person that should be, for the audit to be valid, the contradictory audit, you should come to the main person and ask him the question. If you're not convinced by the question, then it's fine. But you even come to me to tell me about the planes, about the help to universities, the help to school. You know, you'll not come to me and you just say unexplained expenses. I don't worry about these 11 million euro because I have an explanation. I worry as a shareholder of Renault about the fact that I lost 35% of value and I still don't understand why. I worry when Renault goes down by all this amount, the automotive industry is up 12%. So the only companies which went down in market cap for this period of time are, what a coincidence, Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi. And everything else on average went up 12%. So why a company is made? It's what? It's about what? It's about, it's mainly about creation of value, if I remember. A CEO is here for the creation of value. A board is here to protect shareholders. Where are we here? I'm a little bit lost as a shareholder of Renault and a shareholder of Nissan. I say, oh my God, who's protecting me as a shareholder? Who is caring about me? Where's the name of the brand? Where's the future of the brand? Let's go to character assassination. Made the big story about It's okay. That's fine. Okay.
رح نحترم بس الرغبة انه ما نوقف بسبب الكاميرائيات.
نعم. Yeah, please go ahead.
السؤال الأول يتعلق بظروف الهروب. حددت أنه ما بدك تحكي بالتفاصيل، ولكن هناك العديد من الروايات التي تحدث فيها الإعلام. هل رح تكشف تفاصيل هالهروب؟ وهل صحيح أنك وقعت عقد مع نتفليكس واتفقت مع أحد المنتجين لتصويره على بطريقة فيلم؟ والسؤال الثاني عن المرحلة المقبلة بلبنان، هل هناك حديث عن إمكانية توليك منصب رسمي أو مساعدة لبنان اقتصاديا وسياسيا؟
هيدي 5 أسئلة.
مسيو غسان، ثاني سؤال مرلان خليفة، هل تعتقد هل وضعت استراتيجية دفاعية لإلك؟ وهل بتعتقد انه دفاعك عن نفسك من لبنان بيقوي موقفك او بيضعفه؟
اوكي. رح جاوب بالعربي، انت بتسألني سؤال بالعربي بجاوب بالعربي. اولا ما في كونترا مع نتفليكس، في كثير اساطير بالجرايد. في كثير اساطير يفوق في كثير اساطير بالجرايد بدنا ننتبه عليها. ما في كونتراكت مع نتفليكس. ثانيا انا مش رح احكي عن كيف ظهرت من اليابان، لانه مثل ما بتعرف رح اعرض كذا شخص الى مشاكل مهمه. يعني ما بقدر كمان الناس اللي ساعدوني ابرم ظهري طالما انا برا اليابان، ما بقدر، لازم احترمهم. مشان هيك ما عم بحكي، مش انه ما عم بحكي لانه عم خبي شيء، ما بحكي لانه بدي دافع عن الناس اللي ساعدوني. وما في كونتراكت مع نتفليكس. هلا اذا شي يوم من الايام رح تعرفوا الحقيقه، انتم رح تقولوها الحقيقه، مش ناطريني. يعني انتم عم تعملوا الانكيت وانتم عم تعرفوا شو عم بيصير، وانتم رح توصلوا على الحقيقه بلا ما انا احكي. هلا معقولي انا يوم من الايام بعد 20 سنه لكم مزبوط اما غلط، بس مش رح احكي عن كيف ظهرت من اليابان. اوكي؟
Monsieur Wilson, c'est avec moi. Monsieur Wilson. لحظة Monsieur Wilson. Monsieur Wilson, micro معي.
مدام بس je vous en prie, allez-y.
لحظة بس Monsieur Wilson. لأنه
الميكرو اعملوا معروف، اعطوا الميكرو. رح ارجع لك وحياتك رح ارجع. يلا.
Oui, Monsieur Gaud, bonjour, Gaëtan Mélin, BFM TV. Je voulais savoir, tous ces documents que vous nous avez présentés, est-ce que vous êtes en mesure de nous les fournir pour ensuite pouvoir les examiner et montrer que ces documents sont la preuve de ce que vous annoncez, à savoir que ces montages financiers n'existent pas?
Je suis prêt à vous remettre tous les documents que je vous ai montrés. Il y en a d'autres que je ne vous ai pas montrés. Je vais montrer un spécimen de ce que nous avons reçu. Je peux vous dire qu'il y a plein d'autres documents sur lesquels maintenant qu'on va pouvoir retirer. Parce que vous savez, avant, j'étais en prison, j'étais au Japon, je ne pouvais pas parler. Donc il y a beaucoup de gens qui se taisaient. Maintenant, il y a beaucoup de gens qui vont parler. Et là, vous allez voir apparaître tout d'un coup des tas de documents qui vont aller dans ce sens-là. Moi, ce que je vous demande, c'est que mes avocats, et particulièrement Maître Aboujaoudi qui est présent, qui me représente au Liban, et qui fait partie de l'équipe de défense mondiale, vous pouvez le joindre, il mettra à votre disposition les documents qui vont expliquer tout ce que je vous ai dit.
Monsieur Wilson.
بس بدي أسألك سؤال، أنت لبناني وعندك خبرة فظيعة ونجحت بحياتك وخدمت كل هالعالم اللي عندهم أزمات اقتصادية كبيرة. لبنان اليوم عم بيعيش أكبر أزمة بتاريخه اقتصادية. أنت بتقدر تعطي لبنان من خبرتك لحتى ينجح ويخلص من الأزمة؟
أنا ماني رجل سياسي. ولا عندي أي طموح سياسي، بس بدي أعرف. بس إذا مين ما كان طلب مني إنه أنا حط خبرتي تخدم البلد، أنا مستعد. إذا طلب مني تحط خدمتي بس مش كسياسي، مش ما بدي وظيفة، ما بدي رتبة، ما بدي شيء منه. بس إذا مثلا حدا بالحكم إجا طلب رأيي، أما طلب أقدر ساعد هالشخص حتى أحسن وضع البلد، أنا كل خبرتي بحطها تحت تصرف لبنان.
Monsieur Wilson. لا
C'est qui ça?
موناليزا نهار.
تفضلي.
قلت
قلت بكلامك انه اليابان حست انه الشغله الوحيده اللي تخلص او الطريقه الوحيده اللي تخلص نيسان من نفوذ رينو هي انه تتخلص من كارلوس غصن. شو كان موقف الحكومه يعني كيف بتعتبر تعامل الحكومه الفرنسيه مع حنتك بين توقيفك باليابان؟
الحكومة الفرنسية عم بتقول انه هي عم بتجرب تحسن العلاقات مع اليابانيين، ومشان هيك ما عم تعمل اي خطوة لحتى تبين انه عم تتحدى اليابانية. اوكي؟ هذا الموقف الحكومة الفرنسية مثل ما بفهم. لا اوكي سو برازيل Roberto.
O senhor tem muitos amigos no Brasil, foi presidente da Michelin lá, é amigo do ministro Paulo Guedes. A sua mãe mora no Brasil, suas irmãs moram no Brasil. Eu lhe pergunto, o governo brasileiro lhe tratou bem? Eu soube que o presidente Bolsonaro ligou para sua irmã. E a embaixada brasileira no Brasil, como foi o tratamento?
Olha, os brasileiros, o cônsul do Brasil no Japão foi muito amigo, muito querido. Ele realmente cuidou de mim durante o período que foi muito difícil para mim. Você conhece ele, João Mendonça, com a família dele, ele tratou com muito carinho. Agora, você sabe porque o presidente Bolsonaro faz um anúncio no jornal onde alguém fez uma pergunta para ele se ele está pronto para falar do meu caso com as autoridades japonesas. Se eu me lembro, ele falou que ele não quis fazer isso para não atrapalhar as autoridades japonesas. Bom, claro que eu não gosto desse tipo de declaração. Agora, eu respeito esse tipo de declaração, mas eu estava esperando um pouco mais ajuda da parte do governo brasileiro, que não aconteceu, infelizmente. Bon, attendez, oui. Est-ce qu'on peut avoir une autre région? Alors, on a France, Liban.
Can we have the US? The US?
Where is the US, by the way?
Okay, US is here. Mr. Goode?
Please, US, okay.
Yeah, okay. So, Nick Kostoff from the Wall Street Journal.
Yes.
I'm curious as to what your plan is now, because it seems to me it's going to be difficult to find a legal forum in which to clear your name. So how do you feel about the prospect of living out, the rest of your life as an international fugitive? Is that the price to pay for getting out of Japan? Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, first, I am used to what you call mission impossible. I've been into many mission impossible. When I went in Japan in 1999, everybody told me, it's impossible. You're not going to be able to make it. Who are you? You don't speak Japanese. You're coming from France. You're coming from Rolo. Nobody knows that. And you know the story. I don't consider that now I'm in a situation where I cannot do anything. I can do a lot. And I want to clear my name. And I want to find the ways to make sure that the truth is going to come back. So today, yes, on the short term, I'm here. And by the way, I'm proud to be here because I'm surrounded by friends in Lebanon. I'm surrounded by people who respect me and who are proud of me, which really I needed after the ordeal I've been through. But I'm not going to just, say, okay, that's it. I'm not going to do anything else. So you can expect me in the next weeks to take some initiative to tell you how I'm going to clear my name, what kind of forum I'm going to be used to make sure that all the evidence are going to come to the table and that everything I've done be restored. And everything which happened be put not into a propaganda system where I appeal as the cold, greedy dictator, but for what I have been is somebody who has been a very important actor in the car industry with everything I've done.
Johan,
my friend,
Mr. Ross.
No, please, okay. CNN, yes, please.
BBC.
Carlos, request CNN. Following on from my colleague's question, it might seem to some that you've substituted a very small cell in Japan for a much larger one here in Lebanon, where you can't go anywhere, you can't leave the country, you and your wife are both at risk. Would you go to France? Would you even risk getting on a plane to go to France, even though the minister there has said you would not be extradited?
Yeah, well, as you know, there is a red notice that the Japanese government has sent through Interpol. My lawyers say we can fight the red notice, and particularly we can eliminate the red notice if we can explain our case, particularly if it's considered as a political case. They are more competent than me to tell you what's going to happen. But obviously, first, I don't consider myself as a prisoner in Lebanon. I'm very happy to be here, I can tell you. And I prefer this prison to the one where I was before, you can imagine. And particularly here, I'm with my friends, I'm with my family, my kids can come visit me, I can use the phone, I can use internet, I don't have followers, or the only followers I have, by the way, I didn't talk to you about the followers, I will probably, the only followers I have are people who want to talk to me, or who want something much nicer than I've been. So, frankly, I don't feel at all unhappy in Lebanon. I'm ready to stay a long time in Lebanon, but please do not consider that I'm just accept this as it is. I'm going to fight, because I have to clear my name, and this is something which is extremely important to me. I can't accept the fact that fabricating a story and lying about something at such a scale can win or can prevail. I can't accept it, particularly that this is my story.
Mr. Gunn, from the BBC.
Sit down, please.
Okay, okay, no, just one second. Yes, lady near, yeah, near Richard. Yeah, can you give him?
Well, when you go through there, was it a missing chance? And then if you can please share some of the details of your trip here to Lebanon. I know you said you don't want to talk about it, but just a little bit. But let's hear RCA, please.
This is a very Italian question. A little bit, just a little. No. I had contact with FCA. We had a lot of understanding. We had a very good dialogue. Unfortunately, I was arrested before we could come to a conclusion. But the conclusion was not very far. I had a planned meeting in January for a kind of final conclusion of the deal. In January, I was in the detention center of Kosugé, and as you know, this deal went on, but unfortunately did not happen to Renault. And I think it's a big waste for Renault. I think it's a great opportunity for PSA, but it's a great waste for Renault. That's what I'm saying.
Maryse Burgot pour France Télévisions.
France Télévisions, oui.
Monsieur Gunn, vous avez dit vous-même que vous avez pris un grand risque en quittant le Japon. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire quel sentiment vous avez eu au moment où vous avez réussi à quitter le Japon? Certains médias ont fait état d'une malle dans laquelle vous auriez été caché. Quel sentiment avez-vous eu au moment où vous avez tenté cette opération qui était extrêmement dangereuse pour vous? Comment vous êtes-vous senti?
Écoutez, moi, quelque part, le 19 novembre 2018, j'ai senti, c'est comme si j'étais décédé. Je vivais chaque jour en disant, finalement, j'ai une vie tout à fait réduite, mais je ne sais pas si j'allais revoir les gens que j'aime. C'est plongé dans un système que je ne comprenais pas. C'est comme si j'étais mort. Vous savez, quand vous passez par une période comme ça, vous êtes paralysé, vous êtes, je ne dirais pas hypnotisé, vous êtes non, anesthésié. Voilà, vous êtes anesthésié, vous vous anesthésiez parce que vous n'avez pas, vous protégez contre la souffrance. Vous vous anesthésiez. Donc vous anesthésiez, vous ne supportez plus la musique, vous ne supportez plus des souvenirs, vous ne supportez plus les photos, parce que quelque part vous ne voulez pas revenir en arrière. C'est votre façon de survivre cette période. Quand j'ai vu que j'étais sorti, c'est comme si, quelque part, je revenais à la vie.
هل كنتوا بتتوقعوا لبنان انه ياخذ لك وقت لحتى ممكن يعمل اشكال مع اليابان، ممكن يعمل اشكال مع فرنسا التي يرجع عن العداوه ضد المدراء، يرجع عن علاقه سيئه جدا مع البرلمان ومع الفرنسي، فلو لم يكن كانت ذلك ما كان الناس لحد اليوم في اقساط السجن غير خاضعين للمحاكمات
انا ما بعرف جاوب على السؤال يعني كله لانه كله سبيكيوليشن ما انا عم بقول لك انا جيت على لبنان ماني خايف من الجاستس، ماني خايف من الجاستس، انا جاي على لبنان لانه بلبنان وما بقدر بحكي، بقدر تلفي، بقدر شوف الناس اللي حوالي، انا كنت بوضع ممنوع من كل شيء، يعني قاعد ببلد غريب ما بحكي اللغه، ما بعرف حدا، مقطوع من كل شيء، ملاحق، يعني هذه ما خبرتها بس كانوا يلاحقوني كل يوم من وقت ما طلعت من الحبس.
ممكن يطلعوهم؟
ما بفتكر يعني ان شاء الله لا، بس عم بقول انه
Globo, Carmela Bacchi. Como o quanto o Interpol pode intervir no seu caso?
Como?
O quanto o Interpol pode intervir no seu caso?
Olha, eu não sou especialista desse tipo de coisas, mas meus advogados, o que eles falam é que Interpol não tem nenhuma jurisdição dentro do Líbano. O que tem jurisdição dentro do Líbano é o governo libanês. Agora, se você atravessa as fronteiras libanesas e você vai para um país que tem um acordo com o Interpol, aqui, lá você tem um problema. Então, o único jeito de resolver o problema é de ir para a Interpol e defender o teu caso para eles remover o cartão vermelho. Essa é a única coisa.
Mr. Gowan, thank you. Mr. Gowan, Jonathan Rudman from Channel 4 News in the UK. You must be worried. You must be worried that this affair is going to haunt you for the rest of your life, because people will say, if a guy is prepared to escape from Japan in a box, well, there's no smoke without fire. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, there have been many stories about how I escaped, who I escaped, and we heard a lot of things which are contradictory, which obviously I'm not going to come back with. You know, you're going to have always a lot of people who tell you there is no smoke without fire, okay? Which is fair, which always give the advantage to anybody who attacks you. If I'm going to go and tell a lot of stories about you, and they are not true, and you have a lot of people around you say, oh, there is no smoke without fire, so no matter how much lies I put, some of them are going to stick to you. This is the advantage of who is on the offensive. And in this case, that's what's happening. I was an easy target. Why? Because I was renowned. I was a foreigner. So it was very easy to say, this guy has overcome all the limits. He has hidden compensation he didn't receive. He has asked for this, etc. It's very easy. It's very easy to do it. Yes, it's true. You're right. A lot of people can say, he escaped because he's guilty. But I'm telling you, I didn't escape because I'm guilty. I'm escaped because I had zero chance of a fair trial. And if I have any opportunity to prove, at least for part of the people, I don't care about the people who are going to tell you you're going to be guilty no matter what. They abandon that. Okay? This is a lost battle. But at least the people who are ready to listen to you, at least you'll have the opportunity to talk to them. And this has to go through a fair trial. You know? And the only way I have a fair trial is certainly not in Japan. I have to be outside Japan. It happens I'm in Lebanon today, but I can be in another country. I can be in Brazil. Brazil do not extradite its citizen. It doesn't. France, you know, France does not extradite its citizen. Lebanon does not extradite its citizen. I have 3 countries, and I'm blessed to be citizen of 3 countries who do not extradite their citizen. So in any one of the countries, I think I can have a fair trial. Yeah.
Mr. Ron, AP, Associated Press, Associated Press. So I will learn from the Italian question, and I won't ask details about the escape. But
I'm sorry, who are you?
AP, Associated Press. So when people are calling it already the Great Escape, you've heard all kinds. When was the moment that made you realize it is time to escape? How did you reach that conclusion? And then now that you're here, how
How did you spend your time in Lebanon? Since you got here, what was the first thing you did? What are you planning to do for the next one?
Yeah, so the question is, when did I realize? When
you had to plan the escape. When did you start planning the escape? What made you?
When first I lost any hope of fair trial. And I tried. I can tell you, I tried as much as possible. And then when I noticed that the trial was constantly postponed, even though at the beginning the judge told us, I didn't tell you this, but he told us in the session that we had in November that he was going to try to start the trial on the second charge in September 2020. I was very happy. I said, oh, finally, we're going to see the end of the tunnel. End of the tunnel, that means we're talking about 2022. Okay. But then he came on the 25th of December, which was Christmas Day, where we had a pre-trial. And he said, I'm afraid the prosecutor cannot afford to have two trials at the same time. Too much work. So what did they say? They say, I cannot promise I'm going to start the second trial in September. So we said, when? Well, he said, I'm not going to commit, but certainly not before 2021. Postpone, postpone, postpone. And it's always the prosecutor prevail. Whatever defense says doesn't matter. And second, this is number one. Number two is, I want to see my wife. I mean, the judge was surprised I want to see my wife. But maybe for a lot of people it would have been not a punishment not to see their wife, but for me it was. And they knew it because they have their correspondence with Carol. They knew I love Carol, and she is a pillar for me. They knew this because they had all the correspondence. They get to her email. They were not supposed to have the email. They were not supposed to take it from. They took everything. They knew all of this. And because they knew all of this, they said, okay, we're going to put him on his knee. We're going to cut him from his wife. And they were right. They put me on my knees. So when I've seen that I couldn't see Carol and I didn't have any horizon to see my wife and have a normal life, I said, what's left? What's left? I have to leave. I have nothing here.
Lebanon, what did you do in Lebanon? What did you do
Okay,
in Lebanon?
so let's see.
No, Monsieur
سكاي نيوز عربية دارين حلوة. لما اخترت لبنان هل حصلت على ضمانات أمنية أو سياسية؟ وما اخترت بلد داني بتحصل على جنسيته. واليوم كارلوس غصن ممن يخاف في اجراءات امنيه مشدده اليوم شفناها. حكيت انك باليابان كنت بتمشي لحالك من دون مرافقه. ممن يخاف اليوم كارلوس غصن بلبنان؟ وهل قادر على الحصول على كل المستندات الموجوده بطوكيو لا تقديمها الى القضاء اللبناني اللي قلت انك يعني مستعد تنفي القضاء؟
في عندي سؤال خلينا بس اقول لا نسيت الاولاني. شو هي اول سؤال؟
ممن تخاف اليوم حصلت على ضمانات وممن تخاف بلبنان؟ انه عندك الامن كثير مشدد.
الامن مشدد بعمل طاقية. لا لانه يعني الامن مشدد. هلا انت مرقتي قدام البيت اللي كنت انا بدي اروح فيه، شفتي كم صحافي فيه وكم كاميرا فيه، يعني انا بدي دافع عن نفسي كمان، بدي دافع عن حياتي. هلا ما بفكر رح تضلها هيك يعني بعد جمعتين ثلاثه معقول تختفي. هلا انا ما بفكر انه في خطر علي بلبنان، ما بفكر، بس مش معناتها انه مش رح اقدر يعني اخذ احتياطات لحتى ما يصير في شيء. بس ثاني سؤال اخر سؤال.
هل قادرون على الحصول على كل المستندات اللازمه لا تقدمها للقضاء اللبناني اللي رح تثبت؟
انا المحاميه تبعولي مثل ما بتعرفي باليابان عندهم مستندات كثيره، وعدت هالمستندات مرقوهم للمحاميه تبعولي بلبنان ورح عم يكفوا يشتغلوا معهم. يعني انا بفكر انه عندك مستندات. هلا انتبهي البروسيكيوتور ما اعطونا كل شيء. تفكري؟ بعد عندهم شيء، بعد عندهم اشياء، بس بالعاده اللي بيعطوك اياه بالاخر هو الشغله اللي من مصلحتك. بيعطوك اول شيء كل شيء ضدك، بعدين ببلشوا يعطوك الاشياء مجبورين يعطوها اللي بمصلحتك. يعني انا ماني كثير خايف من اللي جاي، لانه اللي جاي رح يكون الى مصلحتنا.
On a bien compris que vous n'avez pas reçu.
Madame, si vous pouvez juste nous dire qui vous êtes.
Valeurs actuelles.
Ah, merci.
On a bien compris que vous n'aviez pas reçu le soutien que vous pouviez attendre du gouvernement français.
Non, je n'ai pas dit ça.
Non, je dis nous avons bien compris.
Vous avez compris, c'est autre chose.
Aujourd'hui, qu'est-ce que vous demandez à Emmanuel Macron et au gouvernement français?
Qu'est-ce que je demande?
Qu'est-ce que vous leur demandez, oui.
Rien du tout.
Vous attendez rien de...
Vous posez une question, vous me dites qu'est-ce que vous demandez au gouvernement français? Je ne demande rien au gouvernement français. Puisque le gouvernement français a dit présomption d'innocence, ce que je crois, et je crois que quand le président de la République a des présomptions d'innocence, je le crois. Mais quand d'autres responsables en France disent présomption d'innocence et ont un body language de il est coupable, ça je ne suis pas d'accord. Ou on est d'accord et convaincu de la présomption d'innocence et on doit être en ligne avec cette conviction, mais on ne peut pas dire on est pour la présomption d'innocence, on dit il est coupable sur la base d'audits intérimaires, sur la base d'informations qui n'ont pas été contredites et dans lesquelles moi-même je n'ai pas été interrogé. Ça je ne suis pas d'accord. Ou bien vous dites je ne crois pas à la présomption d'innocence. Je ne crois pas à la présomption d'innocence. Hein? Dans ce cas-là je comprends ça. Mais vous ne pouvez pas dire je suis pour la présomption d'innocence, mais finalement, avec un clin d'œil, il est coupable et on va le charger, alors qu'il n'y a rien. Alors, vous disiez vous-même qu'il y avait quelque chose pour... Il n'y a rien pour moi. Il y a peut-être une enquête, c'est possible. Mais, évidemment, ces enquêtes, elles viennent d'où? Elles viennent de l'intérieur de Renault. Alors, vous imaginez que moi, j'ai des contacts avec beaucoup de gens à l'intérieur de Renault. Et je sais ce qu'il y a dans ces rapports. Donc, je ne suis pas inquiet sur ce plan.
Monsieur Ghosn, s'il vous plaît. Monsieur Ghosn, pour Libération, s'il vous plaît.
Libération, oui.
Franck Boisis, j'aurais deux questions, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur Ghosn. Justement, à propos de la justice. Vous avez dénoncé l'iniquité de la justice japonaise. Vous n'avez peut-être pas le même sentiment sur la justice française. Il y a 2 enquêtes pénales qui sont ouvertes au parquet national financier à Paris. Est-ce que si vous êtes convoqué par un juge d'instruction français, vous répondrez à cette convocation? C'est ma première question. La deuxième, les Français ont découvert que depuis 2012, vous n'étiez plus résident fiscal en France, alors que vous dirigez pendant ces années-là un fleuron français. Et depuis cette date, la France a décidé de prendre une disposition législative pour imposer la résidence fiscale à tous les dirigeants de grandes entreprises. Je voudrais savoir ce que vous en pensez et si vous pouvez nous expliquer pourquoi vous n'étiez plus résident fiscal en France depuis 2012.
D'accord.
Merci.
On commence pour la première question, c'était
une convocation potentielle d'un magistrat français.
Bah écoutez, elle n'a pas lieu pour l'instant. Hein. Moi, je suis au courant de rien. J'ai mes avocats qui sont là. Il est évident qu'à partir du moment où la justice française demande à me parler, je vais me présenter à la justice française. J'ai rien à me reprocher. Hein. Au contraire, c'est ce que je demande. Hein. Ce que je ne demande pas, c'est qu'on m'accuse sans m'interroger. Ce qui a été fait largement, sur la base d'audits truqués, sur lesquels on ne m'a même pas posé la question, dans lesquels la démarche est absolument discutable, quel que soit le standard de l'audit que l'on examine. Bon, ça c'est sur le premier point. Le deuxième point, vous pensez bien que moi j'ai changé de résidence en 2012, je ne vais pas changer toute seule. Quand vous changez de résidence, vous vous adressez à l'administration fiscale, vous allez expliquer pourquoi vous changez de résidence, vous allez dire où vous allez, et c'est l'administration fiscale qui fait un audit fiscal, qui a été fait dans mon cas, et qui vous donne après, en disant, bon, effectivement, il n'y a rien, vous pouvez faire ce que vous voulez. C'est ce qui s'est passé. Donc maintenant, on vient dire, ah, un patron d'une grande entreprise française doit être fiscalisé en France. Très bien, la loi a changé, eh ben, les patrons français devront agir en fonction de la loi. C'est tout. Mais moi, ce que je peux vous dire, c'est qu'en 2012, je ne l'ai pas fait en catimini. Je me suis adressé aux autorités. J'avais d'ailleurs un fiscaliste qui l'a fait. Il a demandé toutes les autorisations. J'ai expliqué pourquoi j'allais le faire. Je vous rappelle qu'en 2012, c'était une situation dans laquelle on était en train de créer des synergies de l'Alliance. Donc il était très important pour moi d'apparaître comme étant plus à Amsterdam qu'à Paris, pour éviter de froisser les sensibilités japonaises, ce qui, au départ, tout le monde pensait que c'était quelque chose de fabriqué, mais on sait qu'aujourd'hui, ça n'était pas du tout fabriqué. C'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai été à Amsterdam. J'ai passé beaucoup de temps à Amsterdam. Tout le travail de l'Alliance se faisait à Amsterdam. Donc voilà. Alors maintenant, on revient là-dessus. Il y a une nouvelle loi, on n'a plus de loi. Voilà. Ouais. Alors, please.
Financial Times. Mr. Lawson, do you think that the alliance can succeed without you?
I think yes. No. Frankly, I think, yes, the alliance can succeed without me. But the alliance has to follow some rules. The alliance is not going to work with consensus. That I can tell you. And for the moment, they all think that consensual decision-making is one way to make the alliance live. It's wrong. And you know who's wrong and who's right? Look at the result. That's the only way you're going to know who is right and who is wrong in a business. You look at the result. You look at the growth, you look at the bottom line, and you look at the evolution. Well, when I look at what happened for the last 13 months, with everything that happened, I'm not really sure about the future of the lungs. Yes.
Monsieur Ghosn, James André pour France 24.
Monsieur, là-bas, oui. Alors, vous allez la parole. Allez-y.
Oui, James André pour France 24. Je voulais simplement savoir votre vie, évidemment, qui est passée au crible suite à cette affaire dans les médias, partout. On vous a présenté souvent comme ayant, on va dire, atteint un niveau où vous étiez déconnecté des réalités. Il vous est arrivé ce qui vous est arrivé, ça change évidemment un homme. Quand vous repensez à cette période-là, qu'est-ce que vous pensez? Et qu'est-ce que vous auriez à dire sur cette image qu'on a dépeinte?
Non, mais c'est pas une question d'image. Moi, il y a eu des tournants dans ma vie. J'ai fait des choix. Il y en a certains que je regrette. C'est tout. C'est pas une question de comment je vis ou pourquoi je vis, etc. J'ai eu des tournants, j'ai eu des décisions importantes à faire, et dans certaines décisions, j'ai fait de mauvais choix. Je vous dis, aujourd'hui, on parlait de General Motors. Quand Steve Ratner m'a proposé de devenir le patron de General Motors en 2009, et que j'ai refusé de prendre le job par fidélité à Renault et Nissan, j'ai fait une connerie. Parce que je serai aujourd'hui patron aux États-Unis. Marie Barra, qui est patronne de General Motors, a gagné 26 ou 27 millions de dollars l'année dernière. Il n'y a pas eu une ligne dans un journal là-dessus. Elle vit très bien, elle est une citoyenne respectée, elle a un job beaucoup plus facile parce qu'elle n'avait qu'une entreprise à gérer, elle est dans son propre pays. Moi, je n'étais pas dans mon pays, je travaillais au travers des continents, tout le monde était très content que je fasse ce boulot, et maintenant on vient me dire « Ah, M. Ghosn, vous voyagez beaucoup, ah, M. Ghosn, vous touchiez beaucoup d'argent, ah, M. Ghosn, ceci ou cela ». Alors on était très content que je mette en place ces mesures de façon à pouvoir vivre en tant que patron de plusieurs entreprises. C'est ça que je regrette. J'aurais dû faire des choix plus simples. Bon. J'ai fait cela, je les assume. Donc, moi, c'est plutôt dans ce sens-là. Il y a eu des tournants, j'ai pris des décisions. Certaines décisions que j'ai prises, je suis OK. D'autres décisions, je me suis dit, t'as fait une connerie. I'm sorry? Olha, o problema é que você sair do Japão para ir para o Brasil, você tem que parar em algum lugar. Eu sei, mas não vou mais fazer mais comentários sobre isso.
Mr. Ghosn, New York Times. Do you really think you can clear your name in front of an international audience, given that there are widespread perceptions that Lebanon's judicial system is corrupt and not independent?
I'm sorry, who's saying that?
There are widespread perceptions around the world that the Lebanese justice system is not up to handling a trial such as yours. Do you really think that you can clear your name in front of an international audience?
Okay, no, answer. First, I don't agree with you. I think we are very competent people in Lebanon. But frankly, when it comes to corrupt system, my first idea is not about Lebanon.
Thank you. ITN Television News of the UK. Mr. Ghosn, I understand you don't want to talk about the manner of your escape for fear perhaps of implicating friends and colleagues. But it's a moment of great drama. Can you tell us your feelings, your emotion when you got into the packing case, your emotions when you got on the plane to freedom?
Please.
I told you from November 19, 2018 to the 30th of December 2019 until I met my wife, who was the first person I met when I arrived at the house of her parents in Lebanon, I was numb. I numbed myself. I had no feeling. I try not to have feeling. Because when you have feeling, you're in danger when you are in a situation like this. So, if you tell me what are your feelings, yes, obviously I was nervous, I was tense, I was anxious, I was hopeful, but frankly, I spent a period of time, I don't know, probably people who are specialized in this can explain to you, I was like numb. I've been like a kind of nightmare for the 13 months. Started November 19, finished the 30th of December, you know, and the nightmare started when I saw the face of the prosecutor, and it ended when I saw the face of my wife.
Would you recommend the packing case as a means of travel?
I'm sorry?
Would you recommend the packing case as a means of travel?
Okay, maybe 5 more minutes and then we're going to have to stop. Okay, hands. And then you, and hands.
No, I'm Hans.
He's Hans.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosn.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is about, you paint a really sorry picture about the state of the alliance and where it's going. You staked your reputation as a revival artist, made that reputation at Nissan. Can you give us a 3-step program to how you would revive the alliance if you were still in charge at this point? If you were parachuted in there, what would you do to reboot this alliance? What needs to happen? Second question, hold on, I'll jump in for a second. How do you feel about Renault? What are your feelings towards Renault? Did they rush to judgment too quickly and evict you from office without due process? So you say a lot about Nissan, but what are your feelings about Renault?
The first thing is what I would do. Obviously, I'm not gonna tell you what would be my program, but I've always said there is no problem without a solution, and you can always fix the situation no matter what it is. But what I can tell you is what I would do is completely different from what's being done. So that's for sure. The second point is I'm not talking about Renault because today the topic is not about Renault. Today the topic is about I left Japan. I'm explaining to you why I left Japan and everything which happened to me in Japan, which is linked to Nissan, and somehow it's linked to the lines. Renault is not in the loop. That's why I didn't talk about Renault, and that's why I'm not intending to talk, not to deviate the attention from the main topic. Sir.
Monsieur Ghosn, Julien Fautra pour la radio RTL. On parlait de l'embauche de votre sœur. C'est peut-être une erreur, peut-être une faute, j'en sais rien. Ma question porte sur la moralisation du droit des affaires, Est-ce qu'on peut encore faire des affaires comme il y a 5 ans, comme il y a 10 ans?
Non. Non, on ne peut pas. On peut pas. Aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de suspicions sur la gouvernance, il y a beaucoup de règles. Tant mieux d'ailleurs. Mais il faut savoir que l'envers de ça, c'est qu'il y a une certaine agilité, il y a une certaine rapidité qui sera perdue. C'est tout. Mais maintenant, ce sont des choix. Les sociétés acceptent de dire ça va aller plus lentement, mais on va respecter les règles. Très bien. Avant, il fallait aller vite pour saisir les opportunités, mais pour aller vite, on était obligé de prendre un certain nombre de court-circuits. Moi, je ne dis pas du tout que qu'est-ce qui est bien, qu'est-ce qui n'est pas bon. Ce que je dis, c'est que une fois qu'on a défini les règles, à ce moment-là, il faut les suivre. Voilà. Mais c'est vrai que faire du business aujourd'hui par rapport à il y a 5 ans ou 10 ans, c'est très différent. Madame. Oui.
Le procès du procès. Pardon. Oui, votre avocat nous a expliqué qu'il comptait faire le procès du procès et il nous a décrit les conditions que vous-même avez reprises de votre détention. Et au Liban, certains nous ont dit qu'ils vous considéraient comme le Dreyfus de ce pays. Est-ce que vous allez contre-attaquer? Comment? Ce sera ma première question double. Et la deuxième et la dernière, comment voyez-vous l'avenir? Comment est-ce que vous allez contre-attaquer? Comment est-ce que vous voyez l'avenir, vous, en tant que Carlos Ghosn?
Oui, alors attendez, moi je ne comprends pas la question, je suis le Dreyfus du Liban. Je ne sais pas ça veut dire quoi ça? Non mais qu'est-ce que ça veut dire?
Ça veut dire que vous êtes victime, ça veut dire que vous êtes victime d'une... Oui, ça veut dire que vous êtes victime d'une... Oui, tout à fait. Voilà, alors je voudrais savoir...
Attendez, madame, quand vous voyez le film, non mais franchement, il faut... Non, je comprends que les gens ne m'aiment pas, ou disent ah, c'est tant mieux pour lui, etc., il a suffisamment profité. Bon, je comprends ça. Mais quand vous voyez le film, une arrestation sur une non-déclaration d'un revenu non touché et non décidé, ça fait quand même un peu louche, non? Vous ne trouvez pas? D'arrêter un patron d'une grande entreprise sans même l'avoir convoqué pour lui dire écoutez, vous pouvez nous expliquer, on a tel rien du tout. Vous allez en prison, et après on commence à faire l'enquête. Vous ne trouvez pas que c'est un peu bizarre? Bon, donc, quand on dit que je suis victime, oui, moi j'estime que j'étais victime. J'aurais quand même eu le droit à une explication, à la limite qu'on m'arrête après, je comprends. Mais on ne peut pas m'arrêter et après m'expliquer, voilà les raisons pour lesquelles on vous arrête, alors que c'est même pas un crime. Enfin, je dirais, c'est pas moi qui le dis. Ce sont tous les professeurs de droit qu'on a consultés, y compris au Japon, qui disent on ne comprend pas, il faut se arrêter là-dessus. Il n'y a jamais eu de cas avant. On n'arrête pas quelqu'un sur un cas qui n'a jamais existé, sur une interprétation d'une loi, alors qu'il n'y a eu aucun dommage pour l'entreprise. Mais l'argent n'a pas été payé. Où est le dommage? Vous voyez, c'est ça ce qui est incompréhensible. Bon, alors attendez, on va prendre une dernière question. Vas-y, monsieur.
André Neto, para o Estado de São Paulo.
Estado de São Paulo, sim.
Folha de São Paulo.
Folha de São Paulo.
Sim. O senhor protagonizou uma fuga cinematográfica. O senhor hoje retomou a sua liberdade de expressão. O senhor acredita que isso seja o início de grande comeback? O senhor acredita que pode voltar a ser o titã da indústria automobilística como já foi no passado? E segunda questão, o senhor acha que a sua prisão mudou de alguma forma a história da indústria automobilística, pelo menos europeia, nos últimos anos?
É muito cedo para falar de comeback, é muito cedo. Eu preciso ganhar mais força, passar tempo com minha família, com meus amigos, para restabelecer pouco a energia e a força que eu tive. Okay? Por enquanto eu não tenho planos. Isso não significa que não vou ter planos daqui a pouco.
Monsieur Gaune, justamente, só para saber se o senhor poderia, por exemplo, criar uma empresa de consultoria no curto, médio prazo, que planos que o senhor teria? Ou talvez ir para o Brasil.
Bonjour, Monsieur Gaune. Não tem plano para o futuro.
Bonjour, Monsieur Gaune. Roland Artici de Complément Enquête sur France 2. On a récemment interviewé un de vos amis qui nous a dit que votre principale qualité, c'était l'éthique. Est-ce que vous avez l'impression d'avoir eu le sens de l'éthique quand vous avez profité personnellement du cadeau du château de Versailles?
Du cadeau du château de Versailles?
Du château de Versailles.
Oui.
Versailles.
Je ne comprends pas. Ah oui, vous dites que c'est un problème d'éthique?
Oui.
Non mais attendez.
Je vous pose la question, j'affirme rien.
Oui, bon, je pense que mes juristes sont là, ils pourront vous expliquer quelle est la position. Je ne pense pas que c'était un cadeau parce que moi j'ai tout payé. Donc on m'a dit, vous savez, de temps en temps, vous achetez une voiture, on vous dit, on vous offre, bon, vous achetez la voiture, vous payez ça, mais on vous offre ceci. Bon, est-ce que vous dites, ah, c'est un problème éthique, je ne peux pas accepter? Vous allez acheter une voiture, on vous offre une option, vous dites, ah non, monsieur, je ne peux pas accepter l'option, parce que moi, j'ai demandé disposer de la salle. J'ai dit, je prends vos traiteurs, je prends vos vins, je paye tout. Je paye tout. Je paye tout. Et ils m'ont dit, bon, j'offre la salle. Bon, moi, j'ai considéré que c'était un geste commercial, mais pas gratuit. Ça faisait partie d'un package que j'avais payé. Bon, mais et donc, voilà la situation. Alors maintenant, je découvre que ça a été réduit. C'est pas que Renault a payé, c'est qu'il y avait un crédit, d'ailleurs, qui n'a pas été utilisé par Renault, qui a été réduit de temps. Pour éviter tout problème, je dis que je suis prêt à payer, c'est tout. Donc, je pense pas. Si je pensais qu'il y avait un problème d'éthique, je ne l'aurais pas fait. Ça, c'est sûr. Bon.
Excusez-moi, Marie Linton de M6. J'ai été dans les prisons japonaises, j'ai beaucoup enquêté pendant 1 an sur le système judiciaire japonais. Vous décrivez la dureté du système judiciaire, vous décrivez la dureté de votre résidence surveillée. On a du mal à comprendre comment vous avez pu vous échapper si le régime de surveillance était aussi strict. Ça, c'est la première question. Et la deuxième question, c'est est-ce que vous ne craignez pas que le système judiciaire japonais devienne encore plus dur maintenant que vous vous êtes échappé? C'est-à-dire que d'autres ne bénéficient pas d'une libération sous caution, par exemple.
Oui. Moi, franchement, je peux vous dire que si on m'avait donné les signaux d'un fair trial, si on a laissé ma femme venir vivre avec moi, je n'avais aucune raison de quitter le Japon. C'était l'endroit, c'était l'endroit idéal pour me défendre. Le Japon est l'endroit idéal. C'est là où l'accusation est venue, j'étais prêt à me défendre. La seule chose que je demandais, c'est qu'on me donne un petit peu d'espoir que j'allais être traité de manière fair, c'est tout ce que je demandais. Et que d'un autre côté, je ne comprenais pas pourquoi, non seulement on m'interdisait de voir ma femme, incompréhensible, mais le fait que j'étais interdit de voir ma femme, j'ai compris que le président Macron en avait parlé au Premier ministre Abe, je sais que le président libanais en a parlé au Premier ministre Abe, il y a plein de gens qui ont parlé au Premier ministre Abe. Bon, ça n'a eu aucun effet. Mais pourquoi? Qu'est-ce qu'elle a fait? Et puis maintenant, cette affaire de demande d'arrêt pour Carole, parce qu'ils disent, on soupçonne qu'elle n'ait pas dit dans sa déclaration d'il y a 9 mois qu'elle connaissait quelqu'un qu'elle avait rencontré. On lance un mandat international d'arrêt contre une personne pour ça? Enfin, je ne sais pas, moi, si ça vous paraît normal, moi, ça ne me paraît pas du tout normal. Je me dis, il y a une charge, ici, il y a une concentration qui est extrêmement préoccupante. Alors, écoutez, je ne vais pas vous revenir plus longtemps. On a encore, moi j'ai beaucoup de chaînes télé et d'interviews à faire. Je voudrais parler. Où est le document? Où est-ce qu'il est mon document? Oui, je voulais. Bon. Non, c'est bon, on arrive. Voilà. Merci beaucoup, merci.
Comment est-ce qu'on peut se remettre direct sur les vannes? Quelque part, tu es là.